This is a clip from the Canon podcast. To hear the full episode and get access to exclusive benefits, head over to patreon.com/thecannonpod and sign up for just £3 a month.
It felt like one of those games where it was just a narrative being written and the entire world can look at Arsenal and start laughing, and that's the end of the hopes. And the photo of the Arsenal fans leaving the stadium after the game, that also was painful to see. And me being at the stadium, the game just had a really weird vibe to it. It kind of felt like I wouldn't say a pre-season game, but just it was deflated. There wasn't atmosphere. There wasn't no fans chanting and singing. There was no smiles. It was a really weird game, weird vibe. And when Brighton made it 3-0, it was just one of those, like, everyone started to walk out and I could see tears. I could see people giving up. I actually had a steward come up to me and say to me, "Listen, Arteta needs to go." And I said, wow.
Oh my God.
Some of the stuff, trust me, mate. Trust me, some of the stuff I was hearing after the game outside the ground as well, like just chatting to fans, I was like, listen, I don't want to say what I'm actually thinking right now because I'm going to call you guys something that I don't want to call you guys, because some of the stuff you are saying is outrageous. Arteta needs to go. We need to clear out. Next year we will make top four. It was all over the place. And I think that game, it's like, look, fans are fans, and that's what fans are. We are reactionary. We go over the top, but some of the stuff I was hearing was crazy.
Yeah. I just want to add on to that because, I think this is one of the problems with football is that it is your hero or zero. You either win the title or you bottle it and you fail. And it's like we have to find some kind of middle ground. Success can look different for different people at different points. We've had a successful season. We can still point out that there are things that we can improve, but both things can exist at the same time. It's these two truths that fans seem to be unable to hold at the same time. One, we've had a great season, we're doing well, we're on a good path, and we need to improve. It's like they can't coexist. They have to, and they do.
Yeah, this idea that I think Arsenal have bottled the title, we were 8 points clear at one period of time, but there's a reason why Arsenal haven't been perfect. You can't just expect for Arsenal to win every single game, because I'm pretty sure if we had beaten Southampton and West Ham, we'd still be behind Man City, because that's how good those guys are. So, the whole bottling thing is one thing, but there's also a reason why Arsenal haven't been perfect. We haven't been able to win all those games because there are certain aspects of the squad that are not ready, profiles that are not there to replace other players, and it makes sense because we are still in phase 3. You can't be in phase 3 and expect for everything to be perfect and we to be on the same level of Man City. We, to win a title, needed a bit of luck. For players to stay fit, for the likes of Saliba to stay fit, and that would have gone in our favour. And once it's gone against you, it was kind of always going to go against us, especially when you're up against the robots of Man City that have won, I believe, it's a crazy amount of games in a row. They could be going 15 out of 15 end of the season. 3 games away from a treble. George, what are we up against?
Well, we're up against something that's ironically, historically unprecedented. Like, if they do the business in terms of what they're very possible of doing, and let's make no mistake about it, tomorrow is going to be really the Champions League final for many people. Not to discredit AC Milan and Inter Milan. I think those are two teams that many would put it below the, Madrid and Manchester City. So if they finally are able to seal the Champions League, they're going to be sealing the Premier League. And if they do the business against Manchester United in terms of adding a treble and a three-peat, by the way, which I don't know where you place this team, even on 94 points, which could be their maximum. If you're a three-peat team, are you not the best team in Premier League history, potentially? That's a conversation that they're going to be having, potentially having a three-peat and that. So when you're saying, did Arsenal bottle the title? I think there's just a little bit of nuance there. Rivals want it because they want to see tears from an Arsenal fan base. But logistically, when you look at it, for me, bottling implies that you had the capability to win it all along. Bottling implies that you were favorites to put yourself in a position to do it, and then you failed on your own. And I don't agree with that statement because I don't think that Arsenal were at the level to say confidently we can challenge for the title as of August 2022. And then when you start to kind of go and look at it, listen, we definitely didn't help ourselves. There's periods of learning. That doesn't mean then that you can then say that Arsenal did no wrong and there's no self-discovery from both the players and Mikel Arteta's standpoint, because I think even though us not having the squad, there were definitely things that we did that didn't give us a platform to win as soon as we could in moments this season. That's certainly true. And you can critique that and you can say, let's try to learn from it. But then to sit there and say that this youngest team in the league, I think just marginally older than Southampton, to be fair, but the youngest team with the youngest manager in the world are not going to improve is ludicrous to me. And that's putting aside all of the links to a Declan Rice, who on his own, and we've talked about this, is a different level of signing, like excluding this idea that, rivals are going to improve, but Arsenal are going to improve. Like, why is it that everybody looks around to their neighbor's lawn about what kind of flowers they've got and what potentially they could add and never think about kind of your own individual improvement? It's weird to me.
It's crazy because you're right. The young thing is definitely true. And there's the idea that Arsenal might fall behind the likes of United next year. And I look at myself and go, they don't have the foundations that Arsenal have right now. They have also not fought for a title. So next year, if they are fighting for a title, that's their first, chance to gain some experience. A lot of the players will have the experience. So, at the start of the season, if I told the Arsenal fans that you compete for a title and get Champions League comfortably, you'd go, that's a successful season. And now, if you ask Arsenal fans, they'll say, we kind of failed. It is the context of the season. I think fans kind of, they bought into the hype. They thought this was the year. Wolves was, bookmark as the game. People were giving away holidays and selling houses to get there, and it wasn't quite meant to be. But the idea is, for me, Arsenal this year just weren't perfect. And to win a title against Man City, you need to be perfect. You need to be at that level. And I totally understand why we're not perfect. There are obvious reasons to where Arsenal need to improve. And the fact that we know that means that next year Arsenal will have that in their bank, hopefully, and close the gap to maybe 95 points. I think that's what Arsenal need to target now. If you want to win a title against Man City, 95 points is what you have to get. Liverpool got to, was it 99 or 98 to win the title? So that's the level you have to. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I think the whole bottle job thing is just a narrative. But what do you think, Alex?
Yeah, look, as you say, we're dealing with ridiculous numbers here. We have to get 95 points. And I think George is right in that we're dealing with, for me, the best Premier League team ever. Now that can be eras. That can be, ultimately if they win the treble, this will be seen as the best team. I preferred the football they were playing a couple of years ago, but ultimately one of these Pep teams will be seen as the best team ever. I think, because if you're doing it in the modern era, you're the best, in my opinion, with advances in nutrition and sports science, etc., etc. So we're dealing with that. We have to accept, as I said before, we're conceding 42 goals this season. That's more than Chelsea. That's more than Newcastle. I think that's more than Liverpool, more than United. It's ridiculous. We cannot be conceding that many goals, and at the same time, we've done so well to get to where we are. We're dealing with robots, as you said, perhaps. Like, they literally are robots. And I think, I look around at the football landscape. We have a very clearly defined game model. We have I think 80% of Arsenal fans would agree on where we need to strengthen. I think almost every single fan could be like, even if you don't have the right answers or the right profiles, you don't know how to do it, you could be like, it feels like that position, those areas, whatever, is where we need to strengthen. Everyone knows. So we have such a clear mandate going to the summer. If you look at Spurs, if you look at Liverpool, if you look at United, you look at Chelsea, they're all in. There's at least question marks. I'm not suggesting that they're going to, fall away and be rubbish. Far from it. There's clearly defined game models. Some of those clubs, United possibly, but some of them are looking for sporting directors. Some of them are looking to offload players by the 30th of June. They're in disarray. So again, this idea when we look at around our competition that they're just going to suddenly spring up from nowhere. We're so much further ahead of them in our process that it's exciting. But we also have to accept that there is a ridiculous standard to get to, and we have to find a way to do it.
It is crazy though, because if Arsenal had finished third this year and not fought for a title, there would be so much more excitement going into next season. Everyone would be like, yeah, next year we're going to fight for a title. And this is what fighting for a title is. It's fighting for a title. It doesn't mean you're always going to win a title. And I think when at the start of the year, people said, just compete for a title. We competed for a title till game week 35. We were there. We were top of the league. So we showed that we could be there for majority of the season. And now it's that final, I'd say, 5% to get over the line. And that's the hardest part to get right. But, for example, last season, Spurs, they got fourth place on the final day of the season. And there was more hype for those guys because they could fight for a title the next year. I think people don't want to admit how good Mikel Arteta is. There seems to be a reluctance to admit this guy is now of the echelons, no?
Well, there's a part of that because of the media's influence in terms of how hard they went initially, right? Like, I think part of this is also in terms of momentum as well. Like, when you talk about why teams maybe have a little bit more, support for how they end seasons, particularly Spurs, when you talk about it, I think it's momentum going into the season, ending on an objective as opposed to maybe losing your objective, which is something that I think Arsenal fans have become accustomed to for the last 3 years. Despite us knowing the context for why, the feeling is we haven't got there 3 seasons in a row. And I think that is kind of the frustration that's boiling over. I think it's gone too far. And I think it's not allowing people to kind of step back and see the bird's eye view progress for what we've actually done this season. And it's not allowing people to understand that with the youngest team in the league, it was unprecedented for us to win it. We would have been the first team with this age group to do and win the title, let alone the fact that we're competing with arguably the best team in the Premier League era. Like, take that to a side. Arsenal alone, to have achieved their goals, would have had to do something the Premier League has never seen before. And so I think that has to equally come into play in people's calculations, which it's not. And so when you look at it, what I think is more frustrating to me is seeing claims that Arsenal will not do this in the future. This is the highest that Arsenal can go. When you see Gary Neville doing this in terms of even the top 4 ceilings, and you see mainstream pundits doing this, even when you looked at the Monday Night Football, by the way, I love Jamie Carragher generally. I was very disappointed in the analysis about the defensive issues. The numbers and stats were right there. When you see a difference in terms of both pre-World Cup to post-World Cup, yes, Saliba was there, but the amount, I think almost 30% of our goals conceded occurred with Saliba out of the team. That's significant. That is not something to take away, and it just so happens to be a hole in the squad. It doesn't mean that the team can never get there, but ultimately we've got to get a team capable of 13 to 18 players that can compete. We didn't have that this season. We had an 11, and that's fine. But to sit there and say that we don't have the money with Champions League football in a very cash-rich club, with the youngest team in the league performing the way it is, and assuming that Bukayo Saka and Martinelli are at their peak before they've even hit 4 league seasons as a professional footballer, is ridiculous to me. Like, these claims are ridiculous. They need to be put as such, and we just need to get some perspective. And we go again. And I think Mikel Arteta's quotes, by the way, I was extremely encouraged. Yes. And the news that Granit Xhaka, which we'll talk about later, that is the epitome of ruthlessness, guys. Taking your entire leader for your first league challenge in how many years and removing him from the team says a lot about what you feel you need to take the squad to the next level.
Yeah, and that's the next step, is taking the next level, and it's being ruthless. And Mikel Arteta sees that, and I don't think people realize that he can also learn. Like, he's not perfect.
He has to learn, in fact.
And he has to learn. And if there's anyone that is going to learn, it's Mikel Arteta, because he is 3 years into his managerial career.
Thanks for checking out the Cannon Podcast. To get full episodes and access to exclusive benefits, head over to patreon.com/the Cannon Pod and sign up for just £3 a month.